I'm Elena Whitmore, 28, a former corporate attorney who gave up courtrooms for poetry and was repaid with a fistful of hair and a door slammed in my face. I hit the front steps of my family estate knees first, rain in my eyes, blood on my blouse, and silence roaring in my ears. But even through the betrayal, I heard it. The ticking. Grandfather's pocket watch. The one they accidentally tossed out with my broken suitcase. Or maybe the one he hid from me on purpose. Inside it, a message. You'll know when it's time. They thought they'd buried me in shame. What they didn't know is that my grandfather left me a blueprint and a war chest. And before I tell you how I turned a forged will into a courtroom reckoning, just know this. If you've ever been cast out for telling the truth too soon, you're not alone. Stay with me. The moment my mother yanked me by my hair and threw me out the front door, I knew something had shattered beyond repair. My knees struck the cold, rain-slicked stone of the Whitmore estate's front steps, and for a second, everything blurred. The pain, the betrayal, the silence. But then I heard it. The ticking. Somewhere beneath the chaos, beneath the slamming doors and my own uneven breath, the sound pulsed like a metronome against my ribs. I remember my grandfather once said, "If you ever feel the walls closing in, listen to the ticking clock. That means it's time." At 10 years old, I thought he was speaking in riddles. Now, at 28, blood seeping through the hem of my blouse, I realized he had been telling me everything I needed to know. It had started as an urgent family meeting. An early morning text from my mother. No dear, no punctuation. Just, come home. Now grandfather's estate. Even before I stepped onto the familiar gravel drive, I sensed the tension. The morning drizzle clung to the luxury cars parked in neat rows. A Mercedes I didn't recognize. A Lexus with Sabrina's vanity plate. SABQUEEN. The house loomed above me, its windows reflecting dull gray skies and something colder beneath. Inside, the parlor was unnaturally quiet. My mother stood by the fireplace, her lips drawn so tight they looked sewn shut. Sabrina perched on the arm of an armchair, polished to perfection, her expression unreadable. My father sat in the far corner, not looking at me. And next to him, Ronald Peterson, our butler since I was a child, held a leather-bound folder against his chest like a shield. "Sit," my mother said. I obeyed. That was my first mistake. Ronald opened the folder, fingers trembling. Per the amendment to Mr. Whitmore's will, filed 3 days before his passing, full inheritance of the Whitmore estate, accounts and holdings, shall be transferred to Sabrina Whitmore. Silence, like death, like the breath had been vacuumed from the room. "That's not possible," I said, voice cracking. "I'm the eldest. I was named years ago." Charles didn't even blink. "It was revised, Elena." "By who?" "Grandfather didn't even—" I stopped. Because the way Peterson looked at me, faintly pleading, told me something wasn't right. My mother stepped closer, each heel strike like a gavel. "We considered your recent behavior, the instability, the decisions you've made. Your grandfather had concerns." "What decisions?" My voice was a whisper. "Leaving the law firm, dating that bartender, posting your poetry online like a—" She inhaled sharply. "You embarrassed this family." I stood up. "You forged it." Sabrina's smile curled, the kind you give someone you've already beaten. And then Charles moved. His hand wrapped around my wrist, and before I could twist free, I was dragged toward the door like a criminal, like a stain. "Dad, stop!" I screamed, nails scraping the wood floor. "You can't—" He didn't stop. Outside, the cold stung like broken glass. I stumbled, my shoes slipping on moss. Behind me, the door slammed shut. A moment later, the suitcase landed beside me. Handle cracked, zipper split. And then it happened. Something metal rolled out and clinked against the stone. I turned, breath hitching. The pocket watch. Grandfather's. its silver surface dulled with age, its ticking faint but relentless. Somehow they'd thrown it out with the luggage. Or maybe he had hidden it there. For me, I clutched it, fingers trembling. The latch clicked open. Inside, a small engraving. For EW, you'll know when it's time. The wind cut through me as I knelt, bloodied and soaked. I looked up at the mansion, at the people watching me from behind mirrored glass, and I knew they expected me to crawl away. But instead, I closed my fingers around the watch. Ticking. Always ticking. As the iron gate closed behind me, I heard the ticking. And in that ticking, I heard him whisper, "It's your turn now, Elena." That night, I slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. Not for fear, for memory. The mattress sagged in the middle, the ceiling was stained with a dark patch of mildew, and the hum of a vending machine just outside my window pulsed like a distant heartbeat. Still, it was mine. A room at the Crossline Motel, $36 a night if you paid in cash. Room 4B smelled like cigarettes and something sweet gone rotten, but the door locked, and no one could drag me out of here. I lay on top of the covers, fully clothed, staring at the cracked ceiling and the chipped fan that spun like it might fly off the hinges any minute. The pocket watch sat on the nightstand, open. Tick, tick, tick. Its steady rhythm was the only thing anchoring me. My fingers brushed across its smooth surface. Something felt off. I ran a nail along the seam, and there, click. A panel in the back slid open. Inside, a folded slip of parchment and a small USB drive. My heart jerked. I unfolded the note, hands trembling. My grandfather's handwriting. Bold, deliberate strokes. If they turn on you, talk to Harold. And watch everything. I didn't know who Harold was, but I knew what watch everything meant. Grandpa was meticulous, obsessed with documentation. Cameras, logs, witness accounts. If he suspected something, he would have built a trail. I plugged the USB into the burner laptop I'd picked up the week before, just in case. The screen flickered and a video window opened. Static. Then, Walter Whitmore. He sat in his study, dressed in one of his signature gray vests, face drawn but eyes razor sharp. "If you're watching this," he began, "everything has collapsed. And that means they got to the will." He leaned closer. "You weren't supposed to see this unless everything fell apart." I paused the video, breath ragged. My fingers hovered over the trackpad, unwilling to press play again. Not yet. A knock at the door startled me. "Room service with vengeance," came a familiar voice. I opened the door. Mel stood there, holding 2 paper bags and a bottle of something suspiciously off-brand. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, stepping inside. "Or maybe an estate lawyer." "I found something," I whispered. "In the watch." She raised an eyebrow as I handed her the parchment. "Oh, we're in spy thriller territory now," she said, scanning the note. "Who's Harold?" "I don't know, but I'm meeting him." "Where?" "Haven't called yet." She sighed and handed me a bag. "Eat, then plot. Revenge works better on a full stomach." The food was awful, but it gave me time to think. Mel pulled her laptop from her tote and started tapping away. "We're gonna need backup. Anonymous, viral, undeniable backup." She turned the screen to me, a blank page titled Number Justice for EW. I blinked. "That's a little dramatic." "Good. Drama sells. You want people to believe your family framed you? You'll need receipts and a crowd." I didn't argue. I just clicked play. Walter was back on screen. "If they change the documents, it'll be Sabrina. She's not smart enough to do it alone. Douglas Kane helped her. The metadata won't lie. Look at the signature timestamps. Look at the notary. And for God's sake, don't trust Margaret." The video glitched. Then came his final words. "There's more, but it's not safe here. Harold has the rest. You'll know him by the red pen." The screen went black. I sat there, breath frozen. My grandfather, My fierce, brilliant, maddening grandfather had seen it coming. All of it. He predicted every move they made. And he left me the first piece of the map. Revenge is too simple. What I want is exposure. Clean, cold, undeniable. Walter's voice echoed in my mind like a mantra. You must win the room, Elena. Not just the court. That wasn't just about standing in front of a judge. That was about truth. The kind that silences a room and strips people bare. Harold Crane lived in a stone cottage tucked behind an ivy-covered gate on the far side of town. The nameplate outside read simply, See Harold. No titles, no pretensions. Just a man who had waited too long to say what he knew. Inside, his study was a curated time capsule. Vintage law books stacked like monuments, a globe with yellowing seams, and in the corner, a photo of Walter Whitmore in his 20s, grinning with wild ambition beside a younger Harold. You look just like him, Harold said, handing me a mug of bitter coffee. Same eyes, same need to burn the house down when someone locks the front door. I'm not burning anything, I replied. Not yet. He chuckled, then reached into a wall safe. Walter was many things. Subtle was not one of them. He prepared for this. I just hoped I'd never see the day. He handed me a thick envelope marked in red ink, EW Emergency Protocol. Inside, bank credentials for an offshore account, access to a trust fund. $2 million, segregated 6 months before his death. Emergency legal strategy notes, names, contacts. One scribbled line at the bottom. Use this only if the cowards win. I clenched the papers. They did. By noon, I was sitting across from Eric Granger in his gleaming law office on the 34th floor of a downtown high-rise. Glass walls, steel chairs, and the scent of citrus sanitized power. I've seen estates get messy, he said, flipping through the documents. But this is layered. Walter was sharp. That video alone raises questions. And, I asked, and if you want to pursue this, I'll need full authorization. No vague stories, no drama, just facts. I don't want a settlement, I said. This will be public. They dragged me out in front of the staff like I was a thief. I want them to explain it, to the court, to the press, to every trust board and investor who ever shook their hands. He nodded, eyes steady now. Then let's get forensic. Outside, the sky broke into sudden sunlight. I stepped into it like someone remembering how to walk tall. Mel was waiting for me at the corner cafe, laptop open, fingers flying across keys. We're up to 12,000 anonymous followers, she said. Hashtags trending on microforums. No names dropped yet. Just breadcrumbs. She turned the screen. A blurry photo of the Whitmore mansion. A quote from Walter. A caption. What would you do if your legacy was stolen? Justice. For EW. I didn't smile, but I did sit straighter. Keep it subtle, I said. No fire, just pressure. Let them feel the cracks. She raised her cup in mock salute. To civil warfare. Hours later, Eric called me back. I pulled digital filings. Something's off. Kane submitted the amendment documents through his office portal on September 27th. I frowned. Walter died September 24th. Exactly. The metadata says the documents were signed 3 days after he died. If that timestamp holds up in court, Eric said, you just got your first crack in their wall. Not everyone who stayed silent did so out of malice. Some were just scared. Harold's cabin was tucked so deep into the woods you had to follow tire tracks and instinct to find it. The fireplace cracked quietly as we sat surrounded by manila folders, old legal pads, and fading blueprints of the Whitmore estate. Eric was flipping through one of the files. This memo. Martha Reed says Walter wrote it 3 weeks before he died. It references a full will revision and reaffirms Elena's primary heir status. Dated? I asked. He turned the page toward me. Handwritten, initialed. No digital copy found yet. I nodded. It was a start. A fragile wall built on whispers and paper. That afternoon, I met Martha at a suburban coffee shop, half hidden behind a florist with mismatched mugs and a chalkboard menu. She came alone, hair pulled back, lips tight like she'd rehearsed this meeting in her head a dozen times. "I don't want money," she said, sliding an envelope across the table. "But I owe him. And I owe you." Inside, the original memo Walter had typed but never shared with the family. Her eyes didn't leave mine. He told me, "If they push Elena out, it means they've found the claws." I didn't know what he meant then. "Do you now?" I asked. She hesitated. "It means someone planted something. It means someone knew." As she stood to leave, she gripped my wrist. "They'll come for you harder now. You know that?" "I'm counting on it," I said. That night, Peterson answered my knock with the same wide, weary eyes I remembered from childhood. His garden was neat, though overgrown in places, roses competing with ivy. He ushered me in without a word. The house smelled of lemon polish and something older, something quiet. "I was told to stay silent," he said before I asked. "They said it wasn't my place, that Walter's real wishes were already recorded." "But you knew better." He nodded once, fingers curling into the worn fabric of his pants. I watched Margaret take the envelope from his study. I watched her feed it into the fireplace. I should have stopped her. "What was in the envelope?" "I don't know, but Walter handed it to me the day before. He said, 'If anything happens to me, give this to Elena.' And I didn't." My throat tightened. I wanted to rage, to scream. But instead I said, "He mentioned you. In the letter I found. He said if you watched them drag me out, it meant the war had begun." He stared at me. He always spoke in riddles, but he was never wrong. From his desk drawer, he pulled a slim red folder. On the front, in Walter's handwriting, "Final intent." Eric pored over it the next morning, brow furrowed. "This file, combined with Martha's memo, gives us 2 anchor points. We can reconstruct the timeline of the forged documents now." "And Peterson?" he asked. "He'll testify." "Publicly?" "Yes," I said. "No settlements. No shadows." Peterson sat alone on his porch when I returned. He didn't look up as I approached. I sat beside him, hands folded. "I served this family for 35 years," he said softly, "but I never served the truth. Not until now." "You are now?" I whispered. He nodded, tears tracking silently down his cheeks. As I stood to leave, he looked up. "I saw them burn something that night," Peterson whispered. "Something with your name on it." They wanted a quiet courtroom and a clean sweep. I gave them a trial they'll never forget. The county superior court was a furnace of noise and flashing cameras. Protesters gathered behind barricades, chanting slogans and waving signs scrawled in angry Sharpie, "Let the dead speak" and "Truth doesn't burn." Inside, the gallery overflowed. Reporters, strangers, and silent staffers who once bowed their heads when my mother walked past. Mel brushed past me in the hallway. Her phone buzzed constantly. "Video hit 1 million overnight," she said, eyes scanning her feed. "And we're trending in 4 states." She nodded toward the courtroom doors. "Give them the kind of truth that hurts." I took my seat next to Eric. He didn't speak, just adjusted his tie, eyes locked ahead. Sabrina sat 3 rows away, flanked by Margaret and Kane. She wouldn't look at me. Kane, on the other hand, stared too long. The judge entered. Wood gavel struck. "Ms. Whitmore," the judge said. "Proceed." Eric stood. "Your Honor, we begin with a matter of chronology." He walked the court through Walter's amended will, the dates, the metadata, the signatures. Then he dropped the bombshell. A digital signature uploaded 3 days after Walter's death. The court fell silent. Kane shifted in his seat, jaw tightening. "Clerical error," he muttered. "We'll let the forensic analyst decide that," the judge replied, arching a brow. Eric called me to the stand. I pulled out the crumpled letter, Walter's final words, penned in his sharp, slanted hand. I was told to keep this sealed, I began, voice steady. But my grandfather wanted truth. So here it is. I read the letter aloud, words that felt like thunder inside my chest. To my granddaughter, Elena. If this reaches you, it means I've failed to shield you from the storm. You are not weak. You are not lost. The estate is yours. Not by entitlement, but because you were the only one who ever stayed. I didn't look at Margaret as I read, but I felt her eyes burning into me. Eric brought up internal emails next, forwarded from Kane's office. One dated 2 weeks before Walter's death, marked for revision, but referencing content Walter had never seen. Kane stammered. That was preliminary. It wasn't authenticated by 3 sources, Eric said, including your own assistant. Next came Peterson and Martha. Their voices weren't booming. They didn't need to be. Martha clutched Walter's memo like scripture. He told me the real will was hidden. I didn't believe him. I wish I had. Peterson trembled slightly, but his words were precise. I watched Margaret destroy a sealed document Walter entrusted to me. I failed to act, but I won't lie for them now. Gasps echoed in the gallery. Then came the final blow. Sabrina, Eric said, stepping forward. Is it true you withdrew $82,000 from the Whitmore account to pay off gambling debts in Atlantic City? She froze. Her mouth opened, then shut. Margaret grabbed her arm. I thought it was... I didn't think it mattered. Did Walter authorize that withdrawal? No, she whispered. The room buzzed like a hive of wasps. The judge leaned forward. I am ordering an immediate freeze on all estate assets until a full forensic audit is complete. He turned to Kane. You, sir, are to appear before the bar's disciplinary committee within the week. If the metadata is verified, we are looking at more than malpractice. Then he looked at me. And this court accepts the submitted video as a valid testamentary document, pending signature analysis. The weight in my chest cracked, but it wasn't over. The judge turned back to Kane. Mr. Kane, he said, voice low and sharp. One of these signatures is forged. We'll let the forensic analyst tell us which. Under oath. They gave me nothing but a broken watch and a bruised ego. I turned it into a legacy. The courtroom was quieter now, but the silence crackled with finality. Sunlight spilled through high windows as the judge read the verdict, his voice measured and resolute. This court finds the revised testament dated October 12th, 2023, to be valid and binding. All prior forged documents are hereby voided. Control of the Whitmore estate, trust, and associated businesses is granted to Elena Whitmore, as originally intended. I didn't smile. There was no gloating. Just breathe. Mel squeezed my hand. Eric gave a slight nod, his lips tightening in something close to pride. And Harold, seated in the back, bowed his head briefly, like the end of a war hymn. Margaret and Charles stood motionless. They didn't fight the ruling. Sabrina wasn't there. She'd entered rehab 2 days earlier, according to a terse email her attorney sent. The seat she left behind was cold, hollow, unclaimed. Outside, the press roared. Inside, I was already somewhere else. 2 weeks later, I walked through the Whitmore estate for the first time since I'd been thrown out. It was stripped now. No staff, no polished shoes echoing across marble. No scent of Margaret's perfume lingering in the air. Just ghosts. I walked slowly to the study, where Walter once read the same leather-bound book 100 times without ever finishing it. On his old desk, I placed a photo. Him and me at age 8, my hands covered in mud. His in flour from the pie we ruined together. Then I left, locking the front door behind me. I didn't want the house. I wanted what came next. My new office was modest. A sunlit corner above a bookstore downtown with white walls and wide windows. The first thing I hung was a framed quote from Walter. Power without purpose is just noise. That morning, we launched the Whitmore Foundation for Ethical Leadership. The first initiative, Full scholarships for students expelled due to administrative corruption. Eric donated time pro bono to set up the legal framework. Mel's channel hit 5 million subscribers after she aired the final video of Walter, unedited and raw. I visited his grave alone. No flowers, just the watch in my palm. It ticked. I whispered. I didn't win for revenge. I won for tomorrow. And I meant it. Later that week, Eric handed me the first resolution to sign as chairwoman. The ink didn't smudge. The words were simple. Approved. Full tuition reinstatement. Retroactive justice initiative. I leaned back, exhaling. The legacy had begun. Then, late one evening, a letter arrived. No return address. Just my name, written in a hand I didn't recognize. Inside, one sentence. There are more Whitmores than you think, and not all of them want you to win. They stripped her of title, family, and dignity, but in the silence they left behind, she built something louder than legacy. The courtroom didn't just return what was stolen. It exposed what had been buried for years beneath polished lies and golden facades. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. And in that echo, others find the courage to speak, to rise, to remember that truth, once lit, cannot be extinguished. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth.